Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's webcast. My name is Rosalinda Martinez, and I'm a Senior Partner Marketing Manager with Avalara. Today, I'm going to be your facilitator and moderator for this presentation, along with our panel of distinguished speakers, in which we will be speaking about a recent research report that Avalara commissioned called The State of Finance, which provides trends and insights into global accounting and finance teams and how they're using automation to transform their challenges into opportunities. Before I give an introduction of our panel of speakers, a couple of quick housekeeping items. All lines have been put on mute, so we encourage you to use the chat feature within GoToWebinar to ask any questions or make any comments along the way of the presentation, and we will address accordingly. We will have an open Q&A at the end of the presentation where you'll have an opportunity to ask those questions live if we don't address them. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on demand shortly after the conclusion of the presentation. So with that, I am honored to introduce our panel of speakers from Avalara and Sage. They're industry leaders and distinguished executives in their organizations. We have on the line with us Ditmir Jafari, who's the VP of Finance for Sage North America, and Ross Tenenbaum, who is the CFO for Avalara. I'm going to give each of them an opportunity to give a bit further information on their background and roles, as well as a high-level overview on Sage and Avalara. Ditmir, let's go ahead and start with you.
Thank you, Rosalinda, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. I am Ditmir Jafari. I head up the finance team for Sage in North America. I have worked at Sage for about 7 years, working across a number of roles within our corporate team, and most recently as the divisional CFO. Prior to this, I have had 7 years of experience working at Deloitte across their advisory and consultancy arm. It's great to be here and share with you some of my thoughts on this report and also my thoughts around the future state of finance. At Sage, we have about 40 years of experience supporting small and medium-sized businesses, which are the bedrock of our economy and many of the jobs in our local communities. At Sage, our mission is to break down barriers so everyone can thrive. What a better way of doing that than helping businesses automate their back office functions across finance, HR, and payroll. Now, this frees up time for the business owner and the CFO to make data-driven decisions to support them, help them grow their business, and also removes the cloud of uncertainty around compliance and risk. We are very proud to partner with Avalara to provide a seamless solution across finance and tax as well. Thank you, Rosalinda.
Thank you, Ditmir. Ross, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good day. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ross Tenenbaum, and I am Avalara's Chief Financial Officer. My background, I started my career actually at a startup company, a small company that was, at that time, it was a WebEx competitor, so the precursor to the platform we're on now and Zoom and all the video conferencing. And I was the finance accounting person. There were 5 people in the company when we started and built that out and kind of learned on the job how to be an accountant and a financial officer, and built that up quite a ways. And then I moved on to the investment banking world, where I was in Goldman Sachs's technology investment practice, covering software companies, where I met Avalara and took the company public back in 2018. And then subsequent to that was asked by our CEO to join, and I joined about 5 years ago. and I've been CFO for about 4 years here. And I'll tell you a little bit about Avalara. For those of you who are not familiar, we're a transactional tax compliance company in the U.S. That's sales and use tax. Internationally, VAT, GST. We do cross-border custom duties and tariff work, and we do other compliance activities around license management, 1099s, property tax, and several other areas. We work with more than 30,000 businesses directly. We touch over 100,000 customers altogether in over 90 countries. And we have more than 1,200 signed partner integrations across leading e-commerce, ERP, and other billing systems to power tax calculations, document management, tax return filing, and tax research and other tax content access. We've been partnered with Sage, I'm proud to say, for almost since the beginning, long before I was here. When we were founded, our CEO very much believed that Avalara's business wouldn't exist except for where invoices are created, transactions happen, invoices are created, and that's where we do our job. So we wanted to partner and get deeply embedded into all the systems, ERPs, billing systems, et cetera. And Sage was one of our very first partnerships, and it has really grown in an amazing way and blossomed, and we're partnered across, I think, all of their platforms and touching small to large customers. So I'd love to thank Sage for being here with us today. It's been a great partnership.
Thank you, Ross and Dietmar. We are excited to have you both on the line, and we are looking forward to hearing your perspective on the State of Finance report. So let's go ahead and dive into our agenda. Today, we're going to discuss the methodology behind the State of Finance research report. We're going to cover global trends and insights across North America and Europe, and then what we learned about the challenges facing finance and tax teams. We'll dive into the priorities that they are focused on and how automation is being used to address these challenges and priorities. And of course, we'll cover how the Sage and Avalara products work together to support finance teams globally. We'll conclude it with a snapshot of a case study from a CFO of Set Solutions, a Trace 3 company, that showcases how they're using the solutions to increase their efficiency, save their company time and money. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ross to begin with an overview of the State of Finance research.
Sure, thanks, Rosalinda. This year, Avalara commissioned a research report with Hanover Research to surface the top challenges tax and finance teams are facing today, their future strategic plans and priorities, and how technology is helping companies achieve their goals. There was nearly 400 finance executives at companies based in the United States, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, the United Kingdom. They all responded to the survey from those countries. And they represent more than 30 industries, including retail, manufacturing, software, financial services, and telecommunications. If we go over to the next slide, Rosalinda. Thank you. And I just wanted to give you a little bit more of the profile of who we talked to. The profile included senior managers, directors, VPs or senior VPs, and C-level executives. There was a mix of mid-size and large enterprise businesses. About 50% of the respondents were from North America, and about 50% were from Europe. And interesting takeaway was that most businesses surveyed sell internationally beyond the domestic border of that business. So really broad, diverse participation in the survey to bring the conclusions we'll share with you. So I'll turn it back over to Rosalinda.
Thanks, Ross. Yeah, that last takeaway is interesting, and it actually provides a perfect segue into our next topic, which is what are those global trends and insights that the research uncovered. Dietmar, would you mind sharing some of those trends with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it is fair to say we are going through some turbulent times, right? There is global tension out there. Inflation is high, although thankfully recently has started to come down, but still above most government benchmarks. There is a talent and staff shortage, and there is staff burnout, and there is a looming threat of recession. Their survey was very clear, or the CFO's interviews were very clear in their assessment that more than half of them really expect things to get slightly worse before they get better. Over half of the CFOs expect a recession, and they are in a cutback mode. Over 30 to 40% of the organizations surveyed also said they've seen disruptions in their supply chain, which has had an impact on both finance, tax, and accounting teams as well. We see these trends in our own organization as well. A lot of the customers we deal with are small and medium-sized businesses, and what we have seen in real life on our end is an increase in the sales cycle, with businesses taking longer to make decisions about investments they want to make, being an additional layer of approval within their teams or their venture capitals that are funding them. I don't know, Ross, if you have any other thoughts, insights on this trend.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Dietmar. We see on our demand gen side, we definitely see more conversations, more decision makers, just more layers of approval, more work we have to do with our prospects and customers as they consider a purchase. So there's definitely a lot of people have different opinions over where we are. Are we in recession? Are we not? It's going to get worse. You can find every opinion. The survey provides a really good opinion that I'm aligned to. But I think what we're seeing is just more uncertainty of what the future holds right now. And in that time of uncertainty, I know as a CFO, I'm being double checking everything and making sure that investments we're making are absolutely necessary in this time. So I'd say, we definitely, what we're doing and what we're seeing from our customers is just being a lot more mindful before they're willing to commit to anything. So definitely consistent with what you're seeing, Dietmar.
Yeah, I think that takes us to our next slide, which is the quote from IDC. Would you mind reading this, Ross, since it's from a CFO, read by a CFO?
Sure. The fact that these significant macroeconomic events have occurred rapidly and collectively makes the need for financial organizational transformation more important than ever. This transformation is happening everywhere in business, but perhaps the biggest impact can be seen in how the role of the CFO continues to evolve. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a great quote, and it goes with what I just said, that there's a lot of macro events, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of uncertainty, and financial leaders, Dietmar and I included, have to be thinking about how we're going to wisely spend the dollars, especially around software-driven automation that can provide high ROI, facilitate growth on the revenue side, and then facilitate scale of a business with systems and software versus significant people growth. And so I've rotated a lot of my time to be looking at ROI analysis in software that can provide automation, that can curtail our ability to have to scale with heads, and that I'm willing to make investments now in this market that can really drive automation-based ROI. Dietmar, what do you think about the quote, and what are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely agree, Ross. Without wanting to repeat everything you said, really, I think you've nailed the 3 points on the head, really. As CFOs, we need to make sure the business continues to be resilient. So to Ross' points, making sure we have robust liquidity, we can go through some troubled times over the next few months is very, very important. We've also seen a lot of businesses focusing on profitability rather than growth at any cost. and moving that trend where we see probably 2 or 3 years ago that any growth at any cost was what was sought for, what was desired. Probably the last thing really, which Ross alluded to as well, is important as CFOs for us to future-proof the organization. This recession, whether it's happening or it's not, to Ross' points, will come to an end and things will start looking better. And it's important that our organizations are geared up, are set up in a way that they can take full advantage of that. And that's where a lot of the automation and scale and the need to make sure the business is fit for scale, to Ross' point, becomes critical. So 100% agree with you, Ross.
Yeah, well said, Dimir. Well said. I mean, I want to echo your point. There's been a shift in the market from growth or even growth at all costs, depending on the profile of the business, to cash and profitability. And these things are always important, but there's different emphasis in different years on one or the other. And right now, cash flow and profitability much more emphasized over growth. And that's where it comes down to, making investments, especially in automation, that are able to allow us to scale over time in an efficient way. And if we're growing revenue in the 20+%, we want to be growing headcount in the 5% area or something much less. And you can only do that with software investments. So I'm optimistic on the view of software spend. It does slow in tough economic times, but I think it's the way to scale and be profitable, as Dimir said. So really good points.
And I think that brings us to our next slide, which outlines what we learned from that survey, and it touches upon the points that you both made. Businesses are investing in technology. They're increasing their use of automation, and they're investing in more solutions that are closing those gaps. What else do you hear around this topic? Or let me ask you this, what are some of the top automation technologies that Sage and Avalara offer to address these learnings?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. I mean, in our space, we're all around transactional tax compliance automation. So, like I said, sales tax in the U.S., global taxes, VAT, GST, customs duties and tariffs. And depending on every business has this. I always liken it to payroll. Everyone's got to pay their employees, and there's very few companies you can find out there that don't have some payroll automation solution. It's hard to do, and you don't want to get it wrong. Well, transactional tax is the same thing, very complex, very hard to do, especially if you're in many states in the US, if you're selling globally, if you're selling internationally. There's big penalties when you get it wrong, and it's really complex and hard to do. And so we automate that. We always say less taxing, more relaxing. And you can focus, if you have tax teams, they can focus on higher value added activities. We cater to business of all sizes, many very small businesses that don't have tax teams, that don't know how to do this, that don't want to think about it. And for that case, in that case, it's just managing risk. Like, you don't want to accrue an unknown liability in tax that someday comes and eats at your own profits and bottom line and money in your pocket. So we can automate that cost effectively and free up your time, your risk, and your team's time to focus on higher value business functions. And so, that's a good example of one. But if you think about your business, there's so many things you could be automating that way to free up time for higher value activities and reduce risk.
Yeah, I mean, I share Ross's view. I mean, we ourselves, obviously, internally, we use Avalara as well, and this is an important part of our business. What we have also seen is the different tax regulatory audits in different jurisdictions becoming a lot more aggressive in terms of their audit, their tax audits. Other areas of automation for us has been around accounts receivable automation and accounts payable automation. We see internal law of efficiency being driven as a result of automating some of those dunning cycles, some of those letters to customers. Probably the last area where we ourselves have tried to do a greater adoption of our budgeting and planning tool. While we've always had the budgeting and planning tool, it sometimes has been only used by a small number of stakeholders. We're just looking to roll it out more within the business, really, just so we have an integrated budgeting and planning process.
That's awesome, Dimir. That's so critical to, I can't think of running the business without that. So congratulations on that.
Absolutely. And we'll touch upon further on some of the automation technologies later on in the presentation. But let's go on to the next slide, which is how these businesses are with these technology issues and increasing external pressures to increase efficiency. Ross, would you mind talking a little more to this and what the statistics showed us for the state of finance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very much along the lines of what we've been talking about, but showing how technology is helping the broader finance departments respond to external pressures, increase efficiencies, and even drive growth. And 69%, so more than 2/3 of companies are investing in more technology, aligned to what I said earlier, which is I've challenged our business to say, build ROI cases that show what softwares we can invest in and how that will allow us to scale over time and how it'll allow us to reduce future headcount growth. So replacing future headcount growth with automation and software spend. And so aligned to that, 69% of companies are investing in more technology. 45% are automating and optimizing their processes, and that can be software driven, but there's also investments in lean and people-based process improvement. And departments are also increasing collaboration, conducting skills training, increasing their use of internal data, and outsourcing work. So a lot of things, but as we've been talking about, most of the people are investing in technology and automation.
Yes, very true. So we want to know from the attendees what your organization, how you or responding to this external pressure to increase efficiency. We're going to launch a poll. We hope you participate so we can compare and contrast the results that you're experiencing. We'll give you just a few minutes to answer. Lindsay, could you read me some of the results that are coming in?
Yep, so we're about 75% of the way there with responses. Let's get it up a little bit. If you have not responded yet, go ahead and submit your responses now, and I'll close the poll in just a few moments. Okay, closing the poll now. And in terms of results, it looks like about 63% of responses came in with investing in more technology. We had 24% offering skills training, 27% increasing collaboration, 73%, our highest response, was automating and optimizing processes, and 22% outsourcing work.
Thank you. So Ditmir and Ross, comparing to what we know the State of Finance report results were and what our attendees responded to, are there any surprises to either one of you?
I mean, it's very consistent, Rosalinda. It is very consistent with what we see things here at Sage, the report around the state of finance. So I don't think there is any surprises in here. The only thing probably I would say around automating and optimizing processes, we see this internally within Sage as well. Like investing in new technology sometimes takes time and sometimes can be costly as well. So it's not a decision that businesses do immediately. And therefore, really, while we are sometimes looking at options, investigating what technology we want to adopt. There's always scope within our own finance team to see what automation we can do, what tools we can use better, what things are within our gift, then we can automate while we then wait for the end solution, which might be the deployment of a new technology.
Thanks, Dietmar. I think that ties in nicely to then covering, now that we understand what those priorities are, how automation is playing into those, what are finance and tax professionals finding that is consuming their time? Would you mind speaking a little more to some of those top priorities that we found from the State of Finance report?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so in my job, I do get to speak to a lot of our customers. A lot of them are CFOs, and broadly speaking, the priorities of finance, in my opinion, can be bucketed into 3 areas. It's around the accuracy of reporting. So then we make sure we build trust with our stakeholders internally and externally and make decisions, and that drives what decisions we're going to take as well. It's the safeguarding of company assets and making sure we are not, we don't leave the company compliant with any potential fines or even worse, any reputational damage. And last but by no means least, really supporting the business in terms of future decisions they want to make. So it's a lot around budgeting and planning and forecasting. I think what report shows is some of those priorities that we all know are crucial, are time consuming. And you can see from the graph in here, 30% of people think budgeting and forecasting is very time consuming. I think another thing why it's striking is around the fact that only 14% of European companies prioritize transaction tax, while it's seen as a lot more important in North America. Part of the reason of that, I assume, would be the different legislations in different states as well. I think the other area worth flagging really is back to my point around making sure the company is future proof. It's not only 18% of businesses surveyed thought their business was ready for new regulation. We talked, and Ross mentioned this earlier as well, around how we want to make sure the business is set up to take advantage of future opportunities. And I think this is an area that can slow down the business growth, because you don't want to start doing something that you might be non-compliant with local rules and regulations. So I think it's very important really that we as finance professionals understand where some of these constraints might come from, and making sure we invest wisely in terms of what will enable our businesses to grow in the future.
That's very true, and it ties into why those changes are happening. So we found that these businesses are being weighed down by the manual processes, which, as we heard over and over again, investment in automation and technology is going to really help alleviate that. Would you mind highlighting some of the areas that we saw for improvement through the report?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, you can read some of the stats on this on the slide as well. But 46%, almost half of the organizations, rely on manual or semi-manual processes in their submission and compilation of sales and use tax. 53% of companies still handle exemption certificates manually. E-invoicing is a thing that is starting to happen with a lot of government implementing the legislation. In my opinion, it's a matter of when it will be adopted more broadly rather than if. Now that brings lots of challenges for us as businesses going forward around real-time tax compliance, around digitalization of our accounts receivable and our accounts payable. So back to my earlier point, really, as finance professionals, we just need to be mindful of what are the areas that we think will slow down the business from taking advantage of the growth opportunity that comes when the economy start growing, and make sure we invest in those areas to help scale, so that when that comes, the business can scale as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, and I think Ross would agree. You know, we saw an earlier stat that more of North America companies are being weighed down by the different changing jurisdictions. But you touched upon a really very hot topic with the e-invoicing. As that's coming down, that I think is really going to increase and almost even out those concerns among global companies. Ross, do you have any more to add around that and that e-invoicing mandate that we are seeing?
Yeah, I mean, Dittmer really nailed it. He's, you know, he can come to Avalara anytime. Those of you in the U.S. probably know that sales tax is very transactional. It's very hard. Every state and even local jurisdictions have different rules. Orange juice is taxed over 300 different ways by different states and local municipalities in the U.S. alone. And there's just all these rules, regulations, and they change all the time. And therefore, calculation of tax is hard, and we really have attacked that by being built into Sage and other partners at those systems where invoices are created and you have to calculate the tax. And then we aggregate that data and can file the tax returns. Conversely, internationally, tax determination calculation is just much simpler. VAT is usually one number in most countries, and it's much easier to do than calculation in the US. Alternatively, the compliance side, the returns of VAT is much harder than in the US, and those are often outsourced or have big teams doing those. And so to get to your question, Rosalind, the e-invoicing, we think at Avalara, and I think Dittmer agrees, is changes the game, because the mandates require, number one, you're exchanging invoices not only with each other business to business, but the government wants to get rid of the VAT leakage, the tax leakage, which is hundreds of billions. And to do that, they want to be party to the transaction, either at the time of the transaction, where you picture a future world where at the time of the transaction, you have to go out to the government and get clearance, and at some day you may even just pay them. You split the payment, you pay the vendor, and you pay the tax right away. But even before that day, which is coming, they want to be party and be aware of the transaction and be able to audit, and so they can cut back that fraud. And so what that means is the determination, the calculation side becomes more real time, becomes transactional, just like the complex US. And it changes the game for what we do and what you all do in terms of staying in compliance globally. So I think it's going to make it harder for companies to stay in tax compliance, and they're going to have to be more automated and system driven through solutions that Sage provides, we provide, and other vendors provide. So it's a fascinating change, and something that you all should be aware of as these mandates are rolling out quickly. It just makes it hard to even track if you're multinational. Every country has different tax rules, and now they have different e-invoicing rules, and they're different by B2B versus B2C versus B2G. So it becomes really difficult, and we can help you understand it all and even automate it over time.
And just if I may add one more thing, really, we have seen this trend already within the audit practice. The audit practice has actually done quite a lot of improvements, where now we provide a granular detail of all our GL to the auditors, and they do analytics, three-way matching between invoices, revenue, and deferred income. There is no reason that the state in the future can't do the same, where businesses will have to provide the entire breakdown of their general ledger to the businesses. And if I invoice Ross is an accounts receivable in my books, and they will go and confirm that I am an accounts payable in Ross's books. And all of that will be possible through e-invoicing. And that's what governments will ideally want to get to.
Thank you both. Relevant, very true points that you touched upon a lot of what I would cover in the next slide, which is how can Avalara help? We heard about the macroeconomic disruptions and challenges that the business are facing with the lack of automation. So we know that e-invoicing is coming down the pipeline. It's going to be huge. It's going to change the game internationally. And that companies need to implement automation and technology now in order to deal with those disruptions and challenges. So at the beginning of the presentation, Ross put the partnership with Avalara in the exact summary that I was going to give. It's a long partnership that we've had. The great thing about the partnership is that over a decade ago, Sage vetted Avalara as the vendor and partner of choice for the sales, tax, and compliance solution. So this also enables a seamless integration between Sage and Avalara. That means for you and for your organizations, we're already on Sage's paperwork, enabling you to address those challenges that you're facing easily and simply. We know that finance leaders are finding themselves spending way too much time, money, and resources chasing down that moving compliance target. And it is a moving target. Last year alone in the US, there were over 100,000 tax rule changes across 13,000 jurisdictions. So that means that even if you have a staff dedicated to getting a high level rate of city, county, state, and you believe they're good, the reality is that it probably changed. And the very next day, there could be new rates. So your company is moving forward with inaccurate data. With Avalara's solution, the states themselves update the changes so you have the correct data on each and every invoice down to the local jurisdiction, enabling your organizations to have that time-saving, reduce the manual compliance, reduce the manual entry with our solutions, and maximize the efficiency of your staff. So this next slide just shows that our solutions are built into the full suite of Sage's products, which again provide that seamless integration, reducing the risk, reducing the non-compliance, not to mention the audit risk exposure, maximizing your staff, and providing a future-proof solution that's going to scale and adapt with the needs of the business, no matter what the state of finance may hold. And really, we couldn't have said it better than with our case study that we will go ahead and showcase from Set Solutions, a Trace 3 company, and Missy Bassoni, the CFO, outlines how her company utilizing the Avalara and Sage solutions saved over $300,000 annually, 30 hours per week on tax compliance tasks. So let's go ahead and listen to what Missy has to say. Thank you. I mean, really, she puts it in such a great format that if you don't understand the savings that automation can provide your businesses, then are you seeing my screen or yes?
We can't see the screen. I don't think there's anything you're sharing. Yeah, it's come up.
Yeah, we see it now, yeah.
Okay, great. So that concludes this presentation that we're having. And again, Missy said it in a way that will leave you with hopefully understanding that automation and technology is necessary now to foolproof your company's organization and meet the needs no matter what the state of finance is. We're gonna launch one more poll and then we'll open it up to some Q&A to our panel. We'll give everyone just a few minutes to answer it, so we have time for some questions and answers.
Just another couple seconds here. It's like the majority of you have answered.
Great. Is the poll closed, Lindsay?
Yep, just closed.
Perfect. Well, let's go ahead and open it up to any questions for our panel of speakers that we can answer.
We have had a few questions already come in. So first question is, I'm interested to hear your views on how you think AI will change the face of tax and finance teams, particularly in the areas of financial reporting, compliance, and audits.
I'll start. I'm actually at our partner conference called Avalara Fuse out here in Boca Raton, Florida. And in our main session today, we had our head of AI present, and he used our AI called Avi. If you've ever been afraid to do a demo because there's always risk, he did a live AI demo and really asked questions of the AI, not knowing what would happen. And it's pretty amazing. Like what we've done is we've taken all the tax content that powers our engines and our solutions, for tax calculation. Let's just say calculation. They also have fed in other information such as business licenses, and just started asking Avi questions. So Avi, where are you? Recognizes. We told him we're in Boca, Florida. We said if you want to start a business, it was a bakery, what licenses are needed to do that? And it asked a bunch of questions back. Where exactly are you? Is it a commercial or residential area? A few other related questions. And then it came back and it said, you need 9 business licenses, 2 federal, 7 local to start this business. And then it said, here's links to the forms to be able to do that. And then we started asking it questions about sales of different types of products and what is exempt and what is taxed and what are taxed at different rates. And so you get the picture. And so the point is we're leveraging AI, not only product delivery, so that ultimately we want an experience where our customers can say, hey, here's our product catalog, Avi, go map the tax codes. So you don't have to default to personal property You don't have to spend a bunch of extra money to go to outside firms to get qualified answers for how tax codes map. You can ask your AI, how does that all work? What licenses do I need? You know, and basically configure your whole business around tax and other compliance needs through the AI, and then it'll go on to not only do all that work and automate that, but it'll be able to report to you things like, I see you're selling more in a state that you have, and you're about to cross nexus and have nexus in that jurisdiction or state. You might want to think about getting a sales tax registration and turning on the system to be able to keep you in compliance in that state or in that country. So I think that's just a good example that was from this morning that shows how we're using AI. And so that's in the products delivery side. In our business, we think about support for our customers. How do we aid our own agents? You know, right now they have very traditional knowledge-based content, but we're trying to take all of our content and feed it into a more forward-thinking, AI-driven support portal that our customers can ask it questions, can ask Avi questions to get those answers. Our support people can ask questions of it to get those answers. So just more rich content fed by AI to help support our customers, to help get our customers live, to help in the tax return filing phase where we have people, high automation, but also people. How do you make that even better? So those are some of the areas that are tangible examples that we're doing right now across our business.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things I would like to add to that. So, I mean, what's been completely game-changing over the last 12 months is the ability of artificial intelligence to pull together sentences and paragraphs or even books, really, using scouting the content on the internet. However, companies have been investing in artificial intelligence for some time. At Sage, we have been investing in fraud detection. We have been investing in accounts payable automation, in accounts receivable automation. And really, it's the ability to look at historic trends around how a human has recorded a specific transaction, and based on that, forming a view of how future transactions that look similar will be reported. So if a specific entry you've mapped against your marketing expense, then AI would look to, or the tools that we have in place would look to map similar entries against marketing expense, or at least provide a suggestion to your clerk that this entry in the past has been mapped to a marketing expense. Tools like cash flow forecasting, as they've been around, which is really the ability of a system to be able to look into your accounts receivable, accounts payable, look at the history of payment from different suppliers and forming expectations around cash flow forecasting. But what's been completely game-changing, I agree with Ross, is the ability of AI to form sentences. So ability for you to ask them a question and then giving you a very clear answer. So less so in the space of reporting, but more so in the space of customer service. We are looking to explore how some of the first interactions with customers can be done digitally rather than through humans.
Great. I think those answer that well. I know we have a couple more minutes. Lindsay, were there any other questions that came through?
We did have one. Just, is there anything that you guys could expand upon where Avalara and Sage is embracing and innovating with AI? Somebody has heard that Avalara has a ChatGPT plugin for sales tax. Anything to expand on there?
Yeah, I think Ross answered that a little earlier, where he was talking about Abby, which is the ChatGPT plugin. So
Yeah.
yes, that is a really exciting AI link with Avalara, and we just launched that, I believe, Ross, in June of 2023. So it's a recent launch and an exciting one. So is there a further question around that Ross didn't cover? Maybe it was just our new term for our ChatGPT plugin.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really the answer to that one. This is it's a new launch this year. I described some of the things it does, but it really learns. It even does jokes. Sometimes they're funny too, but it's like amazing. Every time we actually did it on stage today, and it asked a joke, and it was like the dumbest joke, and I was like, that's actually great because people know it wasn't like a canned rehearsed thing. Sometimes it tells hilarious jokes though. So anyway, it's gonna get better and better, and the key as always is as we feed it more of our proprietary data, and it can access public data. Think about all of tax content is available publicly. You can go research it, and that's how we built our content database. So Avi could go and do new content research. It can mine for changes in content, and then we can feed it all of our proprietary data, and it's just going to get smarter and smarter to the point as Dimir was saying, like, you just ask it questions and it's going to give you the full answers, and it's going to cut out a lot of the headache of onboarding and how you configure your tax software, how you do Nexus, how you do taxability mapping of your product catalog to tax codes. Do I have to pay this duty or tariff? I'm going from here to there. You'll just have this bot friend that'll be able to answer all that for you. And Dimir got me excited when he talked about the Sage stuff, because we're a sizable company like Sage, but like we still have a lot of work we can do around AR automation, AI or not, just automating AR. And if AI can infuse it and tell us how to be better about that and tell us how to prioritize that. Same thing with the payable side, revenue forecasting. How can we get better at forecasting ARR and bookings and revenue, and have the machine more mine for the data and be introducing ideas to us in full sentences versus us having to have people that go in and create a bunch of slices of the data and try to analyze it and try to come to conclusion. I think the future is machines will bring you insight and conclusions based on mining the data versus having to have a hypothesis and figure it out. So I think what Sage is doing around a lot of those use cases is just going to be extremely powerful and game changing for your companies.
Agree. It's definitely a topic that's going to continue to evolve and address a lot of what we're hearing on the automation of technology. Are there any other questions, Lindsay?
Kind of on the other side of that, so we've heard a lot about technology and automation and how that can increase efficiency, but do you think that automation is threatening tax and finance jobs, and do you think that this is contributing to accounting staffing challenges?
Go ahead.
So my personal view on that, that is not the case. And the reason I say that really is there's always going to be a role for human intervention. What automation is doing is elevating the work of humans and making sure they do as much meaningful work as possible. We've always been scarred with feedback from our teams that a lot of the work is manual, a lot of the work is tedious, a lot of the work is reconciling from one data source to another. And what automation will do will move away all of that and enable people to spend time on insight and helping the business drive results. I feel historically, if you have spoken to CFOs, really, they would say we spend a disproportionate amount of time on data cleansing. We saw it on the report as well, where a disproportionate amount of time is spent on manual processes. And if we can free up finance professional times and focus on value-added insight, I think it will benefit our businesses.
Yeah, and Avalara, we always say, right, it's not reducing, it's redirecting your staff to, instead of doing those manual entries that they're getting wrong probably most of the time. Now they can focus on revenue generating activities and responsibilities. So we always like to say it's not reducing, it's redirecting. I don't know, Ross, if you have anything more to add to that.
I mean, I think it's good. I think personally, I think tax, whether it be sales tax, income tax, the whole basket of global taxation is super transfer tax. It's super complex. It's super nuanced. A lot of gray areas. I don't see us like automating away the jobs. If we're automating those jobs away, we've automated everything away, and we're all on basic income living at the beach. So I wouldn't worry about that. But as both of you said, it's about kind of automating the foundational layers, you know, to reduce risk and be in compliance, and freeing up people or redirecting, as Rosalinda said, to be able to focus on other activities that are more complex, harder, maybe more value add. So I've got a team of 7 tax professionals, and you know, I want them spending time on a lot of other things and not the fundamentals of sales tax. So yeah, I think that the world of taxation specifically, and finance professionals, accounting, financial planning analysis, I just think a lot of that is so nuanced, so complex, such a need to understand the business and the knowledge in everyone's head of how it's all happening. That's not in a database that you can just read and AI. I think these are jobs and areas of opportunity for people for a long time.
Absolutely. So I know we're at time, so I want to go ahead and thank both Ditmir and Ross for your time, your valuable perspective, for sharing the results of the State of Finance report. We hope that you all found it valuable and see how automating technology, implementing the right solution, especially as it comes to tax and compliance, is an invaluable way to offset any state of finance that we may be in. And we do have some additional resources. So we have the State of Finance report that is downloadable and will be available after this presentation to everyone, and some other sales and use guides, as well as the state of book cross-border e-commerce. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we'll go ahead and conclude this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.